Welcome to Breath Basics for Stress. Today we'll just go over some super simple methods for breathing during a stressful situation. And a stressful situation is not a vague concept, but rather a specific mode that the body goes into when we are essentially feeling stressed, when we are triggered by something and it sends us into fight or flight mode, also known as survival mode. So this is a moment in which our body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. So perhaps you'll feel some shaking or a tightening in the throat. And that's just a signal from the body to let you know that you're stressed. In moments of stress, there are a lot of options we have to counteract that stress response, that fight or flight response. But the quickest one is always with the breath, because our breath can send a signal back to the brain to reset and put us into a different mental state and even reset our bodies. So today we'll go over what we call exhale-oriented breath techniques. This generally means that our exhale will be longer than our inhale. That brings down our heart rate and even lowers our blood pressure. In a moment when we are in survival mode, we move back into thriving mode. So the things to think about in terms of breath are length, depth, and pace. And I also want to emphasize that in general, to really breathe in an optimal way, we want to have long, deep, and pretty even breaths. In this particular scenario that I'll give you where we're using exhale-oriented breaths, the pace will vary because we want our exhales to be longer than our inhales. Another general rule of thumb when it comes to breathing on a daily basis is that you really want to try to use nasal breathing at all times or as much as possible. And I know that's difficult for many people. It's difficult for me as well. But it's important to understand that the nose is a use it or lose it organ. So the more we use the nose for breathing, the easier it becomes to breathe, and we can clear out those nasal channels just by simply breathing more and more through the nose. You can kind of think of it as the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating. So we want to avoid mouth breathing. That can even bring us into fight or flight mode, that stress mode. So we really want to emphasize nasal breathing. And we also want to learn to breathe deeply with the diaphragm, often called diaphragmatic breathing. So just to visualize that feeling, go ahead and put your hand on your belly and place another hand on your chest. When we are using the diaphragm to breathe, and keep in mind the diaphragm is skeletal muscle, it's muscle that we can control. So obviously a lot of breathing happens during the day when we're unaware of it, involuntarily. But during these techniques, we are controlling the breath. You often hear of the term pranayama. In the yoga community, prana means breath or life force, and yama essentially translates to control. So we are using breath as a technique, or breath control as a technique for resetting our minds, resetting our bodies. So let's go ahead and just practice some diaphragmatic breathing before we go through the specific methods. Essentially, on the inhale, we want to let the belly swell up and then move up even further into the chest and all the way up just below the collarbone. And then exhale, releasing it from the chest down into the belly. So that's really considered a deep or diaphragmatic breath. For our first breath technique for stress, we are going to do regular breathing through the nose, so both inhaling and exhaling through the nose. But we're going to extend our exhales and make them longer than our inhales. So we're going to inhale for a count of 4, and we're going to exhale for a count of 6. And I'll guide you through that counting backwards. So inhale for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for a count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the beauty of this method is it's something that you can do in your head. So if you're having a difficult conversation, if you're in a situation where you don't want to share that you're doing a breathing technique, maybe you're in a board meeting or you're on a Zoom call, it's a wonderful method where you can control your breath and no one needs to know. You simply want to count in your head so that you know your exhales are longer than your inhales. And that ratio of 4 to 6 is a pretty useful one, and it seems to be pretty easy for most people. If you want to speed up the reset process of going into rest and restore mode a little quicker when you're really stressed, really focus on those exhales and extending them. Remember, deep, long, and well-paced breaths so that they're rhythmic. The next breath method we're going to do is called lion's breath, which is very fun and very easy, but it is not something you'd probably want to do on a Zoom call unless your camera's off. So what we'll do is we will inhale through the nose and then exhale out the mouth, extending the length of our exhale while sticking out our tongue. Kids love this, adults do too, and you'd be surprised how often lion's breath can save you from an argument with someone you love or someone you don't love that much. A lot better than screaming or saying something unkind in the moment. So I'm going to demonstrate once and then we're going to do it together. So I'll inhale through my nose, exhale out my mouth, sticking out my tongue. Just like a lion. So let's do 3 together. And that is lion's breath. And the third breath technique that we're going to do is called a physiological sigh. And this is actually not a yoga technique, but it's a breath technique I learned through the neuroscience community. And physiological sighs are actually a method that we do reflexively without knowing it. If you have ever seen a child crying and they gasp for air, that is a physiological sigh. You'll even see animals doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a double inhale through the nose and then a long exhale, either out the nose or out the mouth. That's up to you. I'm going to do it out the nose because I'm trying to form a habit of nasal breathing. The important thing to understand about the physiological sigh is that by doing that extra inhale, it allows us to offload more carbon dioxide on our exhale, and that also resets the brain, just like that extended exhale, just like the standard breath with the extended exhale. So join me. I'll actually demonstrate once first, and then we'll do it 3 times together. So I'm doing a double inhale and then an exhale. Let's do it 3 times together. And that is a physiological sigh. So thank you for joining me today. This is just one of many mindfulness tools to help you in a stressed out situation. And we all have those moments. That is how the human body works. And we have to learn tools to counteract things that are difficult for us and take control. Namaste.